What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be lowering the OG 720 back to how I used to have it. Truck is currently on 3-inch blocks in the rear and torsion bars up front, just loosened a little bit. Now when I had this thing, my tire was pretty much touching the fender. You could see that the fenders are a little bit mangled, and that's not even me rolling them. I know some people saw the video of me rolling the rear fenders, those that rolled back here, but that has nothing to do with these because I rolled them from my other wheels that I had back in the day. But my plan is to take it to a local meet here in Ontario that is coming up actually in a couple of days. It's actually this week. And I want to take the truck since I think the head gasket is somewhat fixed. Now it does burn a lot of oil, but like I keep saying, I want to drive it until the wheels fall off. So that's what we're going to do. My plan is to throw my 4-inch blocks back in there and pull a leaf. Since the guy did give me my old blocks back, they're in there. In the front, I'm just going to crank the torsion bars just how I had it back in the day. The bump stops are already cut, they're still in there, so we're all set and ready to go. Now, I should mention that when you lower your truck using drop blocks, if you're sitting anywhere close to your bump stops or you're even sitting on your bump stops, your truck is going to ride like absolute poop because there is no suspension travel and it's just going to hit the bump stops. So you can either remove them, or if you have wide wheels, you really can't go that low with a nice ride because there's no way to have wide wheels that stick out past your fender and it ride nice unless you go on air. But static wise, there is no possible way to get it to ride good. Even if you have drop spindles, with the amount of travel that you get, you're going to run your wheel into your fenders essentially and ruin them. So when you have 15x10s and you want your truck super low, you can't get a good ride height. So you either want it to look cool and be static, or you could have it on bags, or you just don't run wide wheels. Another thing I should mention that I think is very important and kind of obvious, at least I think it's obvious, but some people don't know about this, is when you lower your truck, you do need to get in alignment. The rear, not so much, but the front, you need to get the front aligned. So what you need to do is you need to align the camber, since you do get a tiny bit of negative camber wear, and you also need to adjust the toe, which is the most important thing. I know a lot of people lower their trucks and they message me like, dude, my tires are only lasting me like 500 miles. And it's like, did you align your truck? And they're like, align? What does that mean? So when you lower your truck, you need to absolutely align it. And if you can't align it, take it to a shop, have them align it. I know a lot of people don't like to align these trucks just because of the way the suspension is designed. And if you lower it with torsion bars, a lot of people don't want to touch them. But try to find a shop that will, or get a buddy that knows how to adjust toe, and just eyeball your toe, at least for the time being. First step, let's jack it up. I'm going to jack it up from the center of the rear axle. So we're going to jack it up right here. Alrighty, so I got the old U-bolts off. It's just, I believe these are 17s or 3/4. So those are the nuts that came off of that. So once you get that off, this plate slides off, and then there is a stud that comes through with a little 9/16 nut. So this holds all of your leaf springs together. So I cracked this loose. The overload spring came off, which we want to keep because this one keeps it nice and stiff. But they were going to get rid of this middle one because this one helps it, it keeps the ride height up, which obviously we don't care about that. Now when you do remove a leaf, you are reducing your towing capability. So if your truck was able to haul, let's say 1,000 pounds, now you're only going to be able to haul like 700 because it's going to sag really bad with weight. But obviously we're not doing this, we're not building a work truck, we don't care about any of that. I'm just mentioning this for some of you who like to daily drive your trucks and like to actually use them to work. So just keep that in mind. And then also the rear over here is it's not attached. There should be a little dampener block it's on the other side, which is just a bolt and a nut. You take the nut off and it falls off. And then over here we have these clamps that you have to cut because they have little rib nuts in there. So we're gonna have to cut straight across here, and then the leaf spring will slide to the side, and we should be able to just drop it and then put the other one back on, bolt it up. And then we already got the rear axle loose. We just need to jack up the jack a little. It's in the center. Jack it up. Throw our 4-inch tapered block in there. So I know a lot of people ask, the tapered side goes on the back. So tall side goes on the back. So if you look at your pinion angle from factory, it sits like this because the truck is obviously tall. But when you lower it, it goes like this. So then your drive shaft goes from the carry bearing up like this, and it puts it at a pretty bad pinion angle, which is what you don't want. So you want to put the taller part of the block on the back, so it brings the nose down, so your drive shaft is a little straighter. Now, if you go really low, like a 4-inch block, you're obviously going to have your pinion angle is going to be off, but it'll be better than without the tapered blocks. So make sure that you put the taller side on the back, not on the front. So now we put the bottom leaf back on, and we got rid of the middle leaf. Now we put our block in, tall side facing the rear. And you want to line up that little dowel pin with the hole. Like that. Once we have it like this and it's all nice and tight, it doesn't have to be super tight, just hand tight. Now we go over to this side, and then we're going to do the same thing. I find it easiest if you use a set of vice grips like this to grab the little stud, because it tends to just spin. And then you grab your 9/16 wrench on the bottom and you crack that nut loose, and then you're able to slide your middle leaf out. Obviously you got to cut this or pry it out, whatever you want. It's all put back together. I threw the wheels on, I just got to tighten them up, put my center caps back on. But the rear is all done. I got the 4-inch tapered blocks and the middle leaf removed, so this is what we're looking like. Now in total, with the 4-inch blocks and the middle leaf removed, it should drop roughly 5 to 5.5 inches. Removing the middle leaf spring drops you usually about 1 to 1.5 inches, depending on how worn out your leaf springs are. Someone's low-key jealous that my truck is lower than his. He thought his was lower because he has 4-inch blocks on his. Let me show you guys his real quick. So that's his, and he claims he's the lowest out of the group. But now I think I'm lower than him because I got about a 5-inch drop. This is static, by the way. And his is 4-inch blocks, and that's it. So he's a little butthurt that I'm lower than him. Look at him, look at him. It's gonna ride like crap, but for the meantime, doesn't really matter. I'm not really in it to be comfortable. It's not like I want to drive this thing far. It's not like the motor's gonna make it far. But now that we lowered the rear, now I'm gonna lower the front with the torsion bar. This goes for 720s, and it also goes for hard bodies. So a lot of people don't really understand the suspension on these, but essentially what these trucks have is a torsion bar, which is like a spring in a normal car. So these trucks don't have a coil spring like most cars. So what they have instead is a torsion bar that goes attached to your lower control arm. So your torsion bar goes right here, and it gets attached to your lower control arm. And this is a torsion bar. So the name of it is torsion bar because it's a spring, but instead of being a coil spring, it's a bar. So it goes from here all the way back to here. You can see where it's got the little bracket where it's being grabbed onto. So there's the nuts. Instead of a coil spring collapsing and doing this effect, since this is a bar and it's attached from the back, when your lower controller moves up and down, that bar twists side to side. So in order to stiffen it up, you would have to get a thicker, in a sense, thicker and stiffer spring or torsion bar that will twist less. So the more it twists, the softer it is, the less it twists, the stiffer your ride is. But sadly, they don't make stiffer springs for these. Now, there's a company that makes one, but it's not really much stiffer. It's not even worth it. It's like 200, 300 bucks, but it's not even noticeable. So the way you can adjust this is by, in a sense, just repositioning the torsion bar. So you're not touching the stiffness just because you mess with your torsion bars. You're not ruining the stiffness. You're not making it stiffer by lowering it. You're not doing anything like that. All you're doing is, if your bar is like my finger, like this, all you're doing is twisting it. So then you start to ride on your bump stops because you lower your truck so much that the lower control arm is sitting on the bump stop. So now you have no travel because the lower control arm is pinned on the bump stop. So that's why when you lower them this way, it's super stiff versus putting drop spindles. Your suspension chain doesn't change. You still have that much travel, the travel you see in between the bump stop and the lower control arm. So you still have that much travel. It just moves your wheel up 2 inches. Now, if you have wide wheels like this, if you were to lower it 2 inches, let's say you have 3 inches of clearance and you lower this 2 inches, so now your tire sits up here, but you got 3 inches, it's up here. So when you hit a hard enough bump, this tire is going to go right through your fender. So if you run drop spindles, just keep into consideration that you can't go too low if you have wide wheels. So that's just kind of a bummer of running drop spindles. That's why I don't like to run drop spindles, because I have wide wheels. But I personally don't mind sitting on bump stops. The way I've done it is, if it's barely sitting on the bump stop or there's barely any gap before it hits the bump stop, it's still a manageable ride where it's still somewhat of a cushion. But if you're fully sitting on the bump stop, it's going to ride like there is no suspension and there's no shocks. So what you want to do to make it a little easier is you want to jack up the front of the truck so there is no weight on the wheels. You want the wheels to be fully drooped, meaning there's no weight on the actual tires. So there you go. Now that we have the wheel like this, now we're all good to go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here and we're going to go to this nut right here, and we're essentially going to loosen that. So all that really does is hold the torsion bar in place. So the more you loosen it, the lower it'll go. The tighter you go, the more it'll raise the truck. And also another thing I should mention is whenever you lower them, they're always going to be off. I don't know why they're like that, but if you lower them both all the way and you max them out, one side's going to be lower than the other. Like I said, I'm not too sure why that happens, but it does, and it's happened to all of the mini trucks I've ever lowered like this. So I'm not too sure what that's all about. And there it is. Back to the good old days in high school when I used to scrape like crazy on the speed bumps at school. Hell yeah. This gives me flashbacks. Getting stuck in the high school parking lot. Oh, I just can't wait. I'm gonna go for a quick test drive because why not? Just gotta throw my center caps back on because the wheels don't look good like that. Windshield needs to be clean. There it is, guys. Now it is finally lowered back to how I had it in high school. So it does ride pretty rough. It's sitting on bump stops, but again, that's how I had it back then. And it's just for the meantime. For as long as the engine holds, I'm going to drive it like this. Once the engine blows up, I'm going to take the whole truck apart and redo it all. Possibly even do a 4-link and C-notch and run different wheels and stuff like that. But like I said, for now, the motor is just temporary running. It burns an insane amount of oil, and I don't want to rebuild it because it's not the factory motor that should be in this truck. It's a smaller motor. So once this thing goes out, I'll put the motor that should be in here, get it all nice and buttoned up, and then we'll build the truck proper. Yeah, I was able to lower this thing, and I would want to say about an hour and a half. So obviously just using basic hand tools. This up and coming week, so right now when I'm filming this is Monday. So this week, there is a meet in Ontario, which is, I want to take this. Hopefully I can make it there. It's not that far of a drive, so hopefully it holds together and I might burn out the meat with all the smoke blowing and, you know, pull up blowing a bunch of smoke, but it's fine. It's just temporary. So if you guys are interested in that, I will have the flyer in my Instagram. The Instagram is down in the description in case you guys want to come out, hang out, chat for a bit, and check out some cool rides, mini trucks, low riders, Volkswagens, you name it, it's all there. It's on a Thursday night, so that's what I like about it. It's during the week, so it's not a busy weekend thing or anything like that. So I hope to see a couple of you guys there, so check it out on my Instagram. Peace out, guys.